Hello. Welcome to the Game Builder live cast with Eline Media for Yukodit. Just starting a minute early here so I can make sure my connection is live and running. I'm going to check a few things here and then I'll get the cast properly started. If you are joining, please let me know if you can hear me by saying hi in the chat. I would love to hear from you. Looks like I'm seeing Christian in the chat and Ali is here, which is fantastic. Hey guys, what's up? I'm just gonna hang out here for a few minutes and just chill, see who else rolls in. As you can see, I've got Christian's Unity project on the screen, which is here because Christian had asked me some pretty smart questions about some more stuff with colliders. And also today, I'm going to um, focus on this project a bit to show you guys some really cool stuff. Once again, Christian, yes, Christian's asking, did you get my changes? I did. I'm going to just run around in this guy for a little bit here. Check out what's there. So, just wanted to let you guys know we had some pretty bad connection problems for the last couple weeks, and hopefully some of that's going to be fixed. So I got a better router. Whoop, looks like he can't walk on that. Um, a professional streamer router that's got much better throughput. So you should not see any issues of buffering from me like we did in the past couple weeks. I casted yesterday and it was all good there. However, ironically enough, I have been having some internet outages in my neighborhood. So you may still see a period of time when I disconnect. This is amazing. Look at this. We've got a whole additional bathroom in here. Ah, there's even a plunger. This is so realistic. Look at this. Oh my God, I'm so impressed. Look, we've got a shower here and a shower curtain. Ugh, this is so good. I am so excited by how this dog's house is coming together. It's so much fun to see this project rolling out. Christian, I'm really impressed with this. Oh man, it's so cool. And I can get up on the couch. Wouldn't it be fun if he could lay down? I love it. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna check the bathroom out just with the in the scene as well. Um, so yeah, everybody just keep in mind if I do pop out for a few minutes, be patient. It usually just takes a minute or so for the internet outage to resolve itself. I hope it doesn't happen during the cast and it should be fixed. I checked the website for the service provider and they did say they were working on it. There is some things that are floating in here, which is strange. Looks like, you know, maybe there was a maybe you placed it and it looked like it wasn't floating at the time. Toilet's floating a little bit too. It's easy to fix stuff like that though. You can just move it down. I'm going to move this down. Sometimes what I like to do is like I pull it down until I see it cutting through the floor, and then I really get in there and I adjust it. Something like that. Similarly with this, that one was right in the right place. This though, that is floating. These are typically sticking out of the wall, so you might even consider putting this up against the wall, um, and then moving the toilet over in the direction of the wall a little bit. But you know what? This looks so great though. Like, I wouldn't even mind the fact that things are floating a little bit. Let's just adjust this little guy here. See, I cut it through like that, and then I pull it up until it's sitting right on the edge. The details in this are just brilliant. Look at this. There's a soap dish, for God's sake. I am really, really impressed with this. It all just looks so, so good. Um, we've got some architectural little things here. It's so easy to fix stuff like this, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just going to true that wall up a little bit and close that gap for you. We'll engineer this house together. So much good stuff. So, definitely going to kick off with this game today. Whoop, looks like I went outside. I'm back inside. If anybody else is here, of course, say hi. I am really excited to check up on everybody's games tonight. Again, starting out with some stuff about Christians, and we'll just be moving our projects forward today. We've got the whole month of May to talk together about continuing to polish our game projects and taking them towards the next stage. So if you're in prototype, taking that to first playable. If you're in first playable, taking it to alpha. This same sense of really working and building and making progress, seeing where we can get by the end of May with these fantastic game projects we've kicked off. So, hope you guys have been having a good week so far. It's been it's been a pretty good week for me. I went outside today, so there's that. Um, but as usual, I hang out on the computer a lot, and I improved my office this week, fun times. So, as you can see, my background is a little shifted because I've turned the computer and I now have a really big monitor that I can look at for Unity, which is what you're seeing this on. So, I'm really excited about that. Um, it's sort of over here for me. Ali is saying, how is the outside in New York? Yeah, so it's beautiful out here. And of course, one of the things that's really true about Manhattan is even during the pandemic, you can't really social distance. So, there's people everywhere, and you just have to be really careful not to get close to the masses of people that live in New York City. So, I went to the park today, and everyone was doing a really good job of um, everyone staying apart in the park, and most people who weren't exercising were wearing masks and stuff. So it seems like everyone's really collaborating to make sure people stay safe here. And I'm really proud of New York for all collaborating together like that. I'm curious how it's going for you guys in New Jersey. Like I bet Montclair is kind of a ghost town at this point, but tell me how it is. Like I'm curious what it's like there in comparison to here. Manhattan is just such a unique location for this, and since we've had so many, deaths in Manhattan and Brooklyn from COVID, it's a really serious place to be as well. But the nice thing, of course, as always, that I say is we have this fantastic opportunity to hang out here and be happy and upbeat and working on video games. So um, at least that makes me feel good every week talking to you guys about Unity. So yeah, I'm going to hop back into that's the one I want, my Unity project here, and talking a little bit about some stuff in Christian's project. So, um, yeah, Ali is saying, "Yep, it's kind of the same scenario to be honest, but more of a ghost town, of course, in Manhattan." Yeah, yeah, no doubt. At least one thing that's nice about being in New Jersey, especially Montclair, is like you have some really nice parks and nature there. So I imagine at least like you guys could maybe enjoy walking around in neighborhoods and going to some of the nice outdoors places there. Of course, we have parks here too, and just got to keep your mood up and be strong and be healthy. That's the goal. So yeah, I think I'm going to dive in here. And I wanted to start out by troubleshooting something that Christian asked about. And then I'm going to expand into a few examples from this project that anyone could use in a project. So if you're watching today and you're not Christian, don't be thinking, oh, this doesn't apply to me because this applies to everyone. The skills I'm showing you within this project, of course, can be applied in any game. And I hope that this is a great example for you in your own project. So definitely listen up. And if I do go off on a big tangent and you're like, this is really not about my project, I encourage you to open your laptop and work on Unity. Open your project and progress that project forward. I believe I've shared goals for each game project in the weekly emails I send out. So if you're on our studio team, of course, you've gotten that email and you should know what your goals are. If you're confused about what your goal should be for your project, you should let me know. You can chat me here on the live cast and just say, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. But one thing I will say is this week, Christian has achieved the goal that I set out for him. So, props to you, Christian, because this is exactly what I wanted you to do, and you have done it. There is a house here, there is furniture, and I am not able to go outside as the dog, which was exactly what I um, expected out of your environment design for this lovely prototype. So I am so happy and so impressed with this, and just really proud of how this has been growing into something that really looks like a game level. So again, we were going to start off by troubleshooting, I believe, in the kitchen, which is here. And Christian had let me know earlier that there was an issue with colliders going on with this setup in the kitchen. So I'm going to run over here as the dog in the game, and I'll reproduce that bug so everyone watching can see what that is. Do, 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 do. And I see Christian saying in the chat, I just need to add textures and materials, and that is actually something I was going to bring up today. So let's address this collider problem first, though. So Christian emailed me and said, if I jump up where this stuff is, and then he jumps here, the dog can really get stuck in this. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just really trapped in this thing. I can't get out. That is very funny looking, but ultimately that's not how we want the game to run. So this is a classic example of the ongoing discussion we've been having about collider design and how to do it right. So I'm going to fix this here on the cast for you, Christian, and I'll talk through my idea about what to do. So basically, what we don't want is for the dog to get caught in this thing. And to be honest with you, what I would probably do is I would get rid of this mesh collider and add a box collider that doesn't go all the way down. And what that would do is it would allow the dog's head to actually pass through the top of the cabinet there a little bit, and it'll also prevent the dog from getting stuck in it when he jumps. So I haven't tried this yet, but I'm going to just do it and we'll just see what happens. So I'm actually going to put a couple of them in here. I'm going to put one in on this side, which is the sort of shelving side area. Like maybe we don't want the dog to jump in there. I don't think I want the dog to be able to get in that because it's really too small for this avatar and the camera is going to have problems. So I'll block that off. And then I'm going to add a second one. And this one I'm going to do like this. I'm going to put it up here. Now that seems odd, and I'll move this over so it doesn't overlap with the other one. It can overlap with the other one, but I just like to reduce the amount of collision computation that I have in the game. So my theory here is this will be kind of like, the dog can kind of, the head can pass through that if I hit the jump button. But because this is essentially above the dog, hopefully he won't get stuck. In fact, thinking of that, honestly, I probably don't even really need that one. Let's see if these have rigid bodies. Nope, those are decorative. All right, let's just see how it works with no collider on the top. So I run over here and I'm going to do the same entry here from the stove. I'm going to jump up. Here I am. And yeah, he can jump up through there, but at least he doesn't get stuck, And to me, this is actually not that uncommon of a video game scenario. Oh, we've got the collider on the stove is a little weird. That's okay. We can fix that. It's not that uncommon of a scenario to like have the avatar be able to pass through stuff. So that's really probably what I would do. Now, if you wanted the dog instead to like when he jumps up, have it hit his head on it, what we would need to do is actually put a rigid body on this object so that the two objects bouncing off of each other do so with respect to physics. So let's try that option also, and we'll compare it to my sort of like the dog can pass through reality option, which again is not uncommon, but it does look a little bit strange. So again, option one is just to get rid of the collider on the thing and then just put a box collider on this half. I'm going to remove this and then I'll put our mesh collider back. And then let's actually just see what it would be like if I put a rigid body on this thing. So I'm going to freeze all of the constraints so that it doesn't move when the dog runs into it. Absolutely not certain what that's going to do, but let's see. That's interesting. Now he still cuts through it. I'm going to double check to make sure my collider is on there. It is on there. Interesting. Try that one more time. That's actually not what I expected to happen. I really thought he would bump off of it. It's weird that it would just go through. I wonder if my mesh collider is really there. Anyway, let's try not putting that one. And I'm going to put the box back on. I'm just curious if I can get him to bump his head. Let's try it this way. Ah, look at that. That's so interesting. So he still kind of cuts through it. Oh my goodness. We definitely don't want him doing that. So that's such odd behavior. I think what I would do, just given like the rigid body setup makes it a little weird, and maybe I'd need to do a little bit more troubleshooting than maybe I want to for that one to work. I would probably go back to the original solution, which was essentially just to put a collider on this half. And again, I'm taking that off. Just let him cut through the top there and don't worry too much about the visual effect for now. Maybe if we really wanted to troubleshoot this later, we would go back and start to figure out how we could actually make that head bumping effect happen. But, you know, I spent a few minutes tweaking with it and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to really need to figure this out. And in that case, I usually just pick the simpler solution because I'm thinking to myself, I want to get together the gameplay loop before I start really, really tweaking on pieces of the environment. So I'm gonna just keep it that original way I had there. No rigid body, no collider on top, but the side has one. So at least he doesn't get stuck in it. Yeah. The other thing you could do is reduce his jump height so he doesn't jump up into it as far. Things like that. So Christian has said I just need to add textures and materials. And that gives me a great opportunity to talk about adding on some layers of environment design into this great level that Christian has built so far. And what I wanted to dive into here was a couple things, including textures. The other thing I wanted to show is related to lighting. So, of course, we've got some sort of basic lighting in this room in the sense that it's not totally dark. And it looks relatively nice, but also it would be cool to add even more lighting to it to make it brighter and reflect the fact that in real life there are lights in most rooms and houses. So I've downloaded a package of lamps for Christian to use. And I want to encourage you guys who are doing environment design in an interior to do the same thing. There's lots of assets that are a 3D model of a light, and some of them even come with a Unity component, like a pre-built um, Unity component like these. See how there is this thing that says light? It has those already attached to it so that when you put it in the scene, it just comes in already working and ready to go. So for Christian's project, whoop, I actually did, let's put a lamp like right here. I feel like this area, there's a couple different places where I would put a lamp, but definitely near this couch. So I'm going to come over here into my project and go to this lamps folder, which is the asset I downloaded, and I am going to go to the prefabs folder. So we get a couple different options here, and these two folders of lit lamps are the ones I'm going to use. So check it out. We've got all of these choices, and it sort of depends on the way you want your room to look. So we could do a table lamp, we could do a standing lamp. I'm going to put a standing lamp right here, just sort of near this bookshelf. And it comes right in with light attached to it. Now that's a pretty aggressive light, so I'm going to show you a couple things for how I would maybe tweak this to fit in this environment. First of all, that is tiny, and I would really like to make it fit the scale of the room. So I'm going to increase the scale up here in the inspector, just doubling it on all of the different dimensions. So X, Y, and Z. And that definitely looks a little bit more like it's the right size. So, and once again, I can prevent it from floating by making sure it cuts through the floor, and then I just zoom in and bring it up so that it's right there. Perfect. Cool. And now I can adjust the way the glow of the light actually looks so that it has a really pleasing effect in my room. So I'm going to come over here. I was in the inspector over here on the right. I'm going to come over to the left and click on that game object, standing lamp, and I'm going to unroll it here by clicking on the arrow next to it. As you can see, there's a light attached. And here I can set some of the settings for this, native Unity game object and make it look a little bit nicer. So two things that you can adjust on this that are really useful are the color and the intensity. The range is also available there for you to change. So I'm going to turn the intensity down and just see how that looks. Immediately, it's a little bit less dramatic, and maybe we want to do like 1.5, something like that. And then the other thing I'm thinking is maybe a color that's a little bit less harsh. Like this almost looks like the kind of light you would see in a doctor's office. But I want this to look like a lamp that you would see like in someone's living room. So what I'd like to do for this is make the light more yellow. So I'm going to put this over here, and you see how if I turn it yellow, I can get this really nice effect here. I've got all kinds of different ways of coloring the light, but I notice here, if I turn it a little bit down toward the dark end of the color spectrum, I lose that really, really dramatic, like bright circle. So I almost want to do something like that. That's really, really gentle and really pretty. I'll turn it up maybe a little bit more because there's a few other things I can do. One thing I can do is move it. So I can actually put it a little bit closer to the lamp itself. And again, I can turn its range up. Oh my goodness, that's huge. Yeah, that's like if I put 100, the range is like the entire room, right? But, or I can do like, oh, it's only a range of 5, it's really tiny. So like lots of different things you can do to kind of work with this and make it lovely. Um, I'm noticing here it seems like it might be missing. It's no, that looks a little bit like it's missing its coloration there. Like I'm seeing a just a gray exterior. So we actually need to make sure that it's getting its albedo coloration correctly and doesn't look like a gray lamp. But hold that thought for a second because I just want to finish talking to you guys about light. So this should actually be colored. I'm wondering if lit PBR is going to give me a better. Yeah, looks like that's the one I should have used. Let's delete this other one. Troubleshooting as we speak here. I'm going to use this one in the lit PBR folder instead so that I can get that prefab to come in already looking the way it's supposed to. So I'm just resetting the things I did on that other model. Let's see. I'm going to make this yellow again. Something like that. And then I want to move the light down so that it looks like it's really coming from the middle of that. Something like that right there. It's pretty. And I wanted to make the range a bit bigger. The intensity is pretty close to how I had it. I had it at 1.5. All right, so that's sort of something I can work with here. Um, and there's lots of things you can really do with these. But the range, the color, and the intensity are your basics in changing the light and making it look really cute. So I've got that set up. Let's just look like sort of see what it looks like when I play as the dog. It's a little bit intense, right? It's just like glowing and glowing. So I might turn the intensity of that down a little bit. But, the effect of it glowing on the plant like that, I think is just so cute. And I really enjoy seeing that. So I can almost imagine doing a whole thing where you fill this house up with lights, just like a normal house is full of lights, and make it look a little bit more textured and interesting with shadow and brightness in different spots. You can spend hours doing this if it's something you enjoy. So, again, this came with an asset that I downloaded on the asset store. And in this folder, again, these prefabs come in already bundled with a Unity light attached. But one of the nice things to know about lights is you don't need an asset from the asset store to put them in the game. It's just that, like, normally when you see a light glowing in the real world, it's coming from something. So typically we like to put a 3D model of a lamp near where there's a really bright light. But if you do want to kind of brighten up certain things in your game, it certainly is possible to click on create, go to light, and you can put a point light in a game. There's my point light. Whoops, I just lost it. Where did that go? Here it is. Um, you know, Again, see, I've got it here in the middle, and my intensity and range are fairly big. So there we go. Whoops, 45. I'm at 5. So point lights, are away, and that's looking a little weird. Oh, there we go. It wasn't in the room fully. Um, so like if you're like, gosh, it's really dark over here, you could just put a light in, right? Something like that. And being gentle about it, right? Say you were like, oh, I want to make like kind of a mysterious looking blue glow, something like that, right? Or maybe I'll turn the intensity down and like make the range really big. That's cool looking. And that's really starting to look kind of like what you see in a video game, right? Like where these weird glowing in certain areas. Um, just like why is that back there? You start to be like, what is up with that soccer ball? But there's all kinds of lights and all kinds of different ways that you can use them to make the environment look cool. I'm not actually like super trained as a lighting designer, but there are people who like they work on this as part of a game team. people do lighting design and all kinds of multimedia, and it's just this really deep art that can be so powerful in making it a really compelling environment. Um, but I wanted to show you guys, I'm going to delete that. There's a few different kinds of lights you can use. Point light is the one I was using, and it's the one that's attached to that lamp. But you can also do create light and then a spotlight, which would be something that you might consider using maybe on the ceiling. So this is a little, I think it's cutting through the floor right now. Yeah. Oh, there, you can see it on the floor. I think it's that circle right there. Yes, it is. So that's interesting. Um, if you wanted to turn that down, right, again, it takes some adjusting to get it in the right spot. But when you get it there, there it is. You can kind of see. I'm going to turn the spot angle way up on that. And as I spread that circle out, it does sort of start to look a little bit more to me um, like the kind of light that you would get from a ceiling light. So I can imagine doing this and then one of these. We don't have any ceiling lamps in here. You could get one probably, but some kind of ceiling lamp or fixture up there. And then we get this nice little glow so that, again, it's brighter for us when we're the dog and it looks a little bit more like what you would see in a real room. Um, you know, One of the main ways light comes in a room is through windows. And in a game, you have to actually create a window. Like it doesn't just like exist. Um, so again, more opportunity to do lighting if you wanted. You could even download an asset that has windows in the walls. So it just depends on how you want to design your game, but I wanted to let you know that lighting is definitely a thing that people use in video games to create texture, to create effects, to make environments look cool and realistic. And it's absolutely here at your disposal, Christian, and anybody who would be building the interior of a house. So if you're interested in putting some lights in here, I would like highly encourage you to check this out. Christian, for this project specifically, I will push it with the lamps in it so that you can check out these prefabs and play around with them if you desire. All right. So that's my little talk on lamps and lights in Unity. We can revisit this if you guys are interested in doing more with lighting. But I wanted to also talk in this game a little bit about starting to set up some UI stuff. So, again, this game, way back when Christian started working on this, he was talking about making a game that I suggested, which involves having the dog knock things off of other things. And I wanted to take about the second half of the cast today to again talk through some of the things you would do with UI, so that I can reinforce those skills for you guys and you can start to feel confident in building UI for yourself. We did it with Thomas's game with the pushing furniture. That was sort of like my really quick intro to wiring up basic UI. And I'm going to take you through it again today. I just realized though, before I do that, oh, Christian said, what is UI? That is a really great question. So UI means user interface. So when I say UI, what I mean is I want to put some text on the screen. So another word for this might be HUD, which is heads up display. But generally, I like to say UI. And when I'm thinking is things like displaying how many points you have in the upper left hand corner, displaying how much health you have in the upper right corner. Things like that are UI. So having answered that question, I did realize that I forgot to talk about textures and materials, which I wanted to briefly do. Um, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this because we could again spend a whole hour delving into textures and materials. Hey, I see Francis in the chat. So, but for this game, um, just again towards Christian, who's the person working on this project, plus anybody that wants to work up a scene like this, um, textures and materials are pretty simple. You can drag them out of the project and write onto the object that you want to color. And conveniently, this lamp pack actually came with a texture for an interior floor that I want to use to show how I would do that. So in this lamps folder, we have a folder called textures, and I found this floor texture in here so useful. So I am going to actually just drag this and drop it on the floor. Now you can see the texture applied to that plane that Christian has as the floor right away. It looks weird though. So when you download textures and materials from the asset store, you will need to tweak the settings of those a little bit to get them looking correctly. And I'm going to take you to those settings so you know what to change when you download textures of your own. So the plane is automatically highlighted because I just interacted with it by dragging that texture and dropping it on that game object. So I'm going to come over here to the inspector and unroll the arrow next to the material. When I unroll that, what I see here is, again, the settings for the shader. I have here the albedo, which is the picture of the floor that I want to see, and I have the color. There's a bunch of other stuff here that's characteristic to this particular shader. What I would say though is don't set these settings initially when you're playing with this stuff. The one thing you need to know when you get textures from the asset store is how to change the tiling. So what'll often happen is it comes in with a tiling of 1, 1, which means this one square that someone has made that's an image of the floor is just like applied once to the plane and stretched out over the surface of it to fit. Sort of like just dragging and stretching out. And so if I want this to actually look like a nice interior floor, I need to come down here and increase these numbers. So I'm going to type 10 in the X and 10 in the Y, and I'm starting to get a nicer floor. Now, those are enormous boards, like they're the width of a TV. And I think actually like this type of floor is like pretty small boards. So maybe even like let's try 30-30. That's starting to look really nice. I'm going to play as the dog just to see what I can see here. Does it look right? I might even make that just a bit smaller. But this is really actually starting to look like someone's house. And one of the cool things about getting textures in here is those glowing circles of light look a little bit less bizarre because they're not glowing onto something that just is colored white. So this circle of light I put here as though it's coming from like an overhead light looks really nice and natural to me. I feel like maybe I would center it on the room and even expand it a little bit, but we're really starting to get a nice thing here. So Christian is asking in the chat, what should I do for the walls? And there's a few things you could do for this. One option is to search the asset store for textures. So you already know how to search the asset store. Just search the word textures and check free. See what you get. Now, one thing I will say is textures can be incredibly large assets. So if you download something that's really huge and it overwhelms your project, you'll need to delete some of the things you've downloaded so that you can keep your project under that 1 gigabyte limit. Now, Before you download anything, though, there's a couple things you can do in the project the way it is. One is just to search and see what textures you happen to already have in the project. Assets often come in with textures, and sometimes there's something in the project that you can use. So I'm actually going to check just to see what else we have here. Looks like we've got some food. We have a peanut shell. Most of this probably isn't going to look really great on the wall, although it would be really funny to put this on here like this. Christian's like, stop, you're ruining my project. I'm like, yeah, but like, I just really want to make a cheese wall. That looks really weird. Hold on. There we go. Okay, sorry. That's just me being insane. I'm gonna get rid of that. Let's go back and just see what else there is. So that was the food. Let's go back. Let's see what's in this one. That's our furniture. Yeah, we don't have a ton of stuff. I definitely think the asset store might be. I'm going to check this last one. I think this is the one for the lamp. Yep. Asset store. And the other thing you can do, if you do not want to download really huge assets, like literally, like some of the assets you'll download will be like half a gigabyte of space. And when you have your own Unity project, which this is Christian's project, he only has 1 gigabyte total storage space for this. So you could hypothetically, you can easily download an asset that takes up half of the space that you have to use for your project. It's too much. So if you want to create just a color for a wall, here's how you would do that. You would create a material. So I would right click here in the project. I'm just in the root assets folder. That's like where I tend to create new things and then I'll organize them later. Right click. I'm going to go to create here and then I'm going to go to material. So let's call this pink wall. And I do have a few things here that I can do to create something that's going to look sort of like an interior wall. So what I can do here is on this new material, I can change the color. I said pink, so I'm going to put this down here and find something really, really pink, just like crazy pink. Let's make it like this. There we go. I don't know. So I make it pink. And then the other thing I can do is I can turn the smoothness way down, which makes it look kind of soft. Maybe not quite that soft. That almost looks like rubber. But if you look at this circle right here, this sphere, this is kind of showing how light is going to bounce off of that when I change that setting. And what I would do here is if I wanted this to look like the wall had been painted, I would maybe adjust the smoothness until it has about the quality of a painted wall. So like if you look around the walls in your house, you can actually see what it looks like. Right behind the computer, I actually have some lights that shine circles of light on the wall, just like the circle of light I was showing you guys with that lamp. And it's a tiny bit shiny, but it's not really shiny. It's a little bit actually maybe kind of like that looks like. Metallic's going to make it look more like metal. So I'm not going to do anything there. But maybe we're getting towards something that would be a little bit more like paint on a wall. Maybe like that. It looks good, right? Lots of things you can do with this, but just a simple one here, something that's going to work for you. So I've adjusted the smoothness to make it look like wall paint, and I've put the color to be what I want. Now I can just apply the material to the wall. I'm going to check what that looks like as the dog. Cool, purple wall. Looks like somebody came in here like Natalie's been in there painting your house. A fun thing to do too is, if you put this here, whoop, let's put it there. And I'll color this one pink too, is just to see like what it looks like with your lights. So like we have just like a really interesting effect there where we get kind of like an orangey glow because the like light is yellow and then the wall is pink and it just has this sort of that almost just looks like some kind of room where you would have a lava lamp or something. So like maybe Christian is going to say like I want this to be like more realistic like the way a house would actually look. Um I've got all these pink walls here. So the nice thing is if I change this material once, it'll change everything I've applied it to. So say I was like, I don't like that pink. I'm going to make this look a little bit more coral, which is a common color, like a really, really soft. Let's go here. This type of thing, this type of color is actually the kinds of things that people paint their walls, right? Like the walls in my room right now are actually look a little bit like this. So that to me looks actually like an interior wall in a residential home. Let's check again as the dog. Yeah, that looks really nice, right? Like it's sort of this soft tan. And then, you start to think like, oh, you could put paintings like people really do, stuff like that on the walls. This is starting to look really nice. I do see that the TV is floating, but it's a video game. So again, creating your own materials is how I would make the walls, unless you want to download some wallpaper assets. You just have to be careful about managing space in your project. Okay. Just remember when you create materials that when you edit the color in a material, it changes everything using that material. So I believe if I edit the color, oh, you can't edit the color of the default material. That's why you have to create one. But suffice to say that, if I went in here and edited the color of it, everything that's that color is going to change into a different color. It's nice because you can change the color of everything using that material at once. But it's helpful to know because sometimes it's like, oh my God, I just changed everything in my game to be bright pink. So that is how I would do that. I am not going to do any more because I want Christian to play with this a little bit and just get practice with applying and editing materials. Oh, yeah. And final thing, I always say this: what is a material and what is a texture? What is the difference? So, a material is all of this stuff. It's a shader and it has all of these settings, which include these squares, which allow you to feed in textures. So when you apply a texture to an object, it often actually creates a material with that texture in the albedo slot. This is incredibly technical and you don't need to know it to use this stuff, but it's helpful to know that a texture goes into a material. The material is kind of the over the like basket that holds all of the different images and settings and calculations that create whatever you see on the surface of an object. Okay. So I did want to talk about UI, and I'll use the rest of the time to show you guys how to work on UI. I'll probably pick up with this next week because I think it'll take me more than about 10 minutes. As a reminder, as usual, I will be in my office hours starting at 8 o'clock, 8 to 8:30. I am here for your questions. So if you do have bugs or things you want to ask me about, you can log on at that time. I do see Francis logged in and said he was pushing a change as well. Francis, I see your chat. I would love to check out your changes. So stay tuned for that. But you might want to watch this because, we have Christian's game, Thomas's game, and Francis's game. All three of those games need UI. You guys all need UI. And starting to work with the basics of how to set up UI is going to be super helpful. So I want to put text on the screen. That's what I start with when I want to do UI. I want to put text on the screen. And for this game, what I want to do is I want to display text that tells how many objects I've knocked over. And to start setting that up, what I'm going to need to do is create the game object that puts text on the screen in front of you. And that game object is called a canvas. So here in my hierarchy, I'm going to go to create. You can see right here UI. And then I'm coming down here and I'm clicking on canvas. So that appears at the bottom of the hierarchy. It's not visible in the scene right now. And that is because for me to see it, I actually need to zoom way out. And there are two ways that I find the canvas in the scene. The first one is I click on 2D up here, this tiny little button that says 2D. Everything is flattened. It's okay. I click on the canvas here, hover the cursor over the scene, and I press the F key. There it is. So this canvas is hovering in the air miles above my scene. So if I unclicked 2D, you would see everything that I was just looking at, that house, is down here. Click on 2D again. Now I'm looking at my UI for the game. So within this square, whatever I put here, you are going to see all of the time when you're playing. I'll tell you what I mean by that with an example. Let's add some text. I'm going to add some text by right-click on Canvas, UI, and text. Zoom in a bit with the scroll wheel of the mouse. You can see some text there. Let's make this a bit bigger. I'm going to change the font size of that to be fairly large. I'll make the color be white so we can see it. And I'm going to type Yukodit. Can center that if I want, and then it allows me to center it right in the middle of the screen. Now watch this. I press play, and it's there in the screen no matter what I do. Looks kind of like it's glued to the dog, but that's also because the dog is glued to the center of the screen. It's funny looking. So that's sort of the starting point for me to put text on the screen. I have this canvas. So I'm going to hop out of the game here. And again, I see my canvas because I'm in 2D. Now, if I want to display points on the screen, I'm going to move this box up to the upper right-hand corner or upper left-hand corner because obviously we don't want it right over the dog. So I'm going to put it up here. Couple things that are helpful for this. I need to anchor it in the upper right-hand corner by clicking this upper right-hand corner in the anchor presets. It's right here. Set that in the upper right. And the other thing I need to do with my canvas, I'm going to click back canvas, is I want this to scale with screen size so that if the screen size changes, the text is still about in the same location. You can see that the text actually moved over when I did that, and now I'm going to have a better chance of successfully always having it show up in the upper right. I'm going to align it to the right side of the screen, make this fairly big, and then let's do this. Reset everything so that it's basically just stuck to its anchor in the upper right-hand corner. And I want to see what this looks like before I do anything else. So I run, and now you can see I've got some numbers up there, or some letters, sorry. Obviously it just says Yukodit, which is pointless, but when we start to keep track of how many objects the dog has knocked over, I can start to feed that number up to where I have that text, and that number will change. So I can put anything on the UI. I can put text, I can put images, I can put buttons. There's lots of stuff I can do. If you wanted to put an image on here, you would right click on the canvas, UI image, and it gives you a blank spot to put something in. If I wanted, for example, to put an image in the upper right, again, I would anchor it in the upper right. And then I would pass in a 2D image. You could put anything in there. You could put a picture of yourself there. What you do need to do if you're going to put an image in there is you need something that is a JPEG or a PNG, a flat image. I don't know if there's anything in this project that's 2D. Let's see. Looks like probably not. So stay tuned, and next week I'll show you guys how to put a 2D image in there. Actually, I swear I've seen some in this. I don't know. Nah, I don't think so. Technically, you could use a texture. Let's see what this is. This would probably work. Let's see if this does it. Yeah. So I mean, who knows, like why you would put this, but if you wanted that there, you could put it. And of course, like the point with this is not to put a picture of a steak, but the point is to realize that anything you have on the screen like this, you can control with code. So I could code up a script to have that image show up on the screen only when he jumps on the table, right? Something like that. There's lots of fun stuff you can do with these. So I'm going to delete that because we really don't need that there. What we do need is to think about how we would actually start to wire it up to know when an object has been knocked over and when I should update the points up here. So I'm going to change this to say objects knocked over and a colon like this. And we can imagine we're going to start to actually add a number here as we play the game, right? So I'm starting to actually do some design here. I'm probably going to turn down the size of this because that looks a little bit big. I'm also going to adjust this so that it's not quite flush with the corner, just so there's a little space around it. Let's check this out. Yeah, nice. So some basic UI is already set up. And the question we need to figure out for the next class is, how do I change that? How do I change that text? So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, what I would say specifically to Christian is, what that's going to be linked to in this project is tagging objects in the scene as knockable. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that as the final thing. And to do that, I have to get out of my canvas editing mode here in 2D and back into the scene. So just as a reminder, if you're doing UI, what you need to do to get back into the scene, first of all, is click off of the, oops, that's the asset store, click off of 2D. Click off of 2D. And you'll see like now suddenly it looks slanted, right? Now I'm not locked in that weird perspective. And I want to head back into the scene. I'll click on my trusty player avatar, hover the cursor over the scene, and press F. And there's my dog. Here I am back in the scene. So once again, Christian, if you want to work on this and prepare your game for working on UI next week. Anything in the scene that the dog can knock over and get points for, you should tag as knockable. And we have this in the project here. So it's up here. There's a thing here that says tagged. And I've put this tag in here for you, knockable. So that means like essentially the dog can knock it over, right? And we're not going to tag this as knockable. We don't want the dog to knock over the desk, but we do want the dog to knock over, for example, the vase. So that's where we'll start. We'll want things that can be knocked over to be tagged knockable. Textures and materials, something you could work on, as well as incorporating lights. Now, if you're Francis and you tuned in here, we had talked about doing lights in your game too. Um, I think there was a sense that scene was pretty dark. And so I would love to also see you work with lights in that racetrack and maybe give us a little bit more of an ability to see where we're going in that game. So it's 8 o'clock. And what I would like to do is hop into my office hours and hang out there for the next 30 minutes so that I can answer your questions and talk to you guys specifically on the Yukodit studio team who might have actual questions, actual concerns, things to do in Unity that you want to talk to me about. So from now, I'm going to go ahead and end the cast. If you tuned in today, thank you for being here, for checking out some of the stuff I was doing in Unity today. I will be here as always Tuesday nights at 7, and my office hours for on the ground studio members are 8 to 8:30. All right, thanks for tuning in. I will be looking forward to seeing what you guys work on next week. Francis, I didn't have time to open your game on the cast, but I will check out the changes you made right after this in Unity. And when you guys see the email from me, I will update the goals I want you to work towards in taking these projects to the next stage. All right, I'll be in my office hours. I am signing off for now. Thanks for a great hour of game development, guys. I will see you next week.